And we're now joined by David Friedman, a Donald Trump advisor. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. One of the remarks that stood out this evening that you said was calling one of Clinton's aides, Huma Abedin, claiming she has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. What's your reaction to this?
I think the evidence is such that she does have ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. She grew up in Saudi Arabia. Her parents are, known intellectuals with regard to Sharia law, and they have connections to the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't think that's terribly controversial.
And what would you say are the connections? Because we did hear that you backtracked on some of these statements. You said she has connections both to the Muslim Brotherhood and to al-Qaeda, which actually have some conflicting ideologies of their own. So what exactly are the connections?
I never said she had any connections to al-Qaeda. Somebody in the crowd shouted out that they thought she had connections to al-Qaeda, and I don't know one way or the other if that's true. What I had pointed out was that she has connections to the Muslim Brotherhood, and I believe she does.
All right,
she's free to rebut that. I think the evidence is clear.
All right, sir, let's just recap. I want to play back to your remarks, and then we can take it up from there. Let's have a hear.
How about her friends? You tell a lot about people from who they hang around with. Who does Hillary Clinton get her advice from?
George Soros.
George Soros, good, good.
George Soros.
Got it, I got it. George Soros, good, you're right. George Soros. Cindy Blumenthal, Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal, one of the most vile anti-Israel haters on the face of the earth. What about Huma Abedin? Grew up in Saudi Arabia. Close connections to the Muslim Brotherhood.
And al-Qaeda.
And al-Qaeda, right.
So, David, you stand by your remarks.
Well, as you could hear, somebody shouted out, and al-Qaeda, and I was repeating what they said. I don't endorse that statement. I don't know. I don't know that it's true or not true, but I have never said that Huma Abedin has any connections with al-Qaeda. But I think the evidence is fairly clear that she has connections with the Muslim Brotherhood.
All right. Let's take a look at the greater scale of the campaign and where Republicans and Donald Trump is doing right now, how he's doing right now. With a two-digit lead by Clinton, how do you think you'll manage to close the gap, narrow the gap in any way with less than 2 weeks left?
Look, I think people should stop speaking about the polls because the polls are all over the lot. People take polls, to support whatever arguments they want to make. You can show me a poll that has Clinton ahead by a fair amount. I can show you the LA Times, the Investors Business Daily, Rasmussen that shows that Trump's ahead. The election's only 12 days away. Let's let people vote. Let the American electorate make their choice. The media should stop putting the finger on the scale by telling the Americans who's going to win. It's enough already. It's really enough. Let the Americans vote and make their decision. We'll find out what that decision is. We've learned in England, we've learned in the state of Israel that the left-wing media has attempted to influence the polling, and then at the end of the day, they are wrong. Brexit was a result that was totally different than what the polls expected. The election of Bibi Netanyahu was totally different from what the polls indicated. We'll see what happens here, but let the American people decide. Enough trying to manipulate the polls.
So disregarding the polls, I want to bring you back to your event tonight with, as you mentioned, someone from the crowd screaming out al-Qaeda, and it seemed that you agreed by saying, right. Do you think it's helpful in inflaming the situation this way?
There's really no there. I really wish, you weren't there. You're listening to a tape. Some person shouted out al-Qaeda, and I repeated it as if this person might have known something. That's all that happened. I have no information. I can't say it any more times. I have no information whatsoever about whether or not Huma Abedin has any connections with al-Qaeda.
So you don't agree with the person who shouted out saying she has connections to al-Qaeda? You denounce this statement?
No, I don't know one. I can't renounce it because that would require that I have knowledge that she's not affiliated with al-Qaeda. She has very, very strong ties to Saudi Arabia, which is the nation in which al-Qaeda originated. So I can't renounce it because I don't know one way or the other. To renounce it would imply that I have some knowledge about the subject. I don't. It was shouted out in a crowd.
But don't you
Muslim
think using
Brotherhood
this
is a totally
terminology
different
is only
situation.
polarizing people and making the campaign and the Republican campaign seemingly more extreme?
You know, Hillary Clinton does not speak about her policies with respect to the state of Israel. She doesn't articulate policies. She comes up with a few platitudes here and there. So we're left to divine what her policy will be with respect to the state of Israel by looking at her background, by looking at her past conduct, and by looking at the hundreds of millions of dollars she takes from the most repressive regimes on the state of the in the entire world, the most misogynistic, the most homophobic, the most anti-Semitic regimes in the entire world. Okay, so we're left to divine what she might do. Okay, we look at Tom Kaine, we look at Huma Abedin, we look at Cindy Blumenthal, we look at Max Blumenthal. Okay, because her words don't mean anything. She has no value. She has no commitment to Israel that anybody can accept at face value, because the last 3 or 4 months have revealed that, you know, she's not trustworthy and you can't believe anything she says. So we're trying to understand what Hillary Clinton will be as the President of the United States with regard to Israel. It's not a pretty picture, and I think people need to understand that because they should vote on an informed basis. Mrs. Clinton is not telling us how she will be, so we're left to deal with
Will Donald Trump recognize
who she takes money from.
Jerusalem as Israel's sole capital?
Yes, he said that countless times, that he will recognize the city of Jerusalem as Israel's eternal capital, and he'll move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
All right, so Trump's policies as far as the Israeli Jewish American voter, why should Israeli voters, Israeli American voters, vote for Trump?
Well, if those who want to see a strong relationship between Israel and the United States with no daylight, those who want to see Israel protected at the United Nations, those who want to see the strongest level of military and strategic cooperation between the two countries, those who don't want to see any daylight between the two countries, those that want to live in an environment where the United States doesn't attempt to impose upon Israel a solution to the Palestinian conflict against the state of Israel, those that want to see Jerusalem recognized as the capital of Israel, you know, vote for Donald Trump. If you don't care about any of these things, then maybe he's not your candidate. But if you care about a strong relationship between Israel and the United States, there's no question Donald Trump is the preferred candidate.
David Friedman, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us this evening.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.